And welcome to The Reality Is. My name is Alicia.
And my name is Sanjana.
And before our show starts, we'd like to let viewers know that the values and opinions that are expressed on this show do not reflect the values of Close Look Productions. They're our values and opinions and ours alone. And with that being said, let's get started with the show.
Yeah.
Episode 444. There's one thing I wanted to mention. Mm-hmm. Our show is so amazing that we got a sponsor.
Ooh.
So I'll tell you a little bit about our sponsor.
Okay.
It's Surrey Honda. So on 152nd and Fraser Highway, check out surreyhonda.com for the latest deals and services. That is so cool. We have someone sponsoring our show. That
check that
amazing.
Out.
Yeah.
Yay.
Absolutely. Well, let's get back to the show. Today is an interesting show. It's a little heavy. It's a heavy topic. Mm-hmm. But I feel that we both feel that it's a really important and significant topic to discuss, given the reality of this topic and how prevalent it is in any culture, any race, any society.
Exactly.
So why don't you introduce the topic, Sanjana?
Yeah, so today we're talking about relationship violence. And I think that's such an integral topic for us to address, especially because youth are now getting into new relationships and exploring new things about themselves as well. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes they can misjudge situations and think that certain things are appropriate or normal when really there might be like some relationship violence or some problems in there.
Yeah, I think because like even youth, young adults, like we're getting into this realm of dating and relationships, and there's a lot of things that I feel like we just have not experienced, and then as a result we kind of overlook it.
Exactly.
So we thought that we'd bring this topic to you guys so that we'd have a very simple conversation about it. And, we're all informed about the topic.
Yeah.
So when it does happen and, we are in that situation, we're a little bit more equipped to deal with it better.
Exactly. And we're able to support other people who are going through the problem as well.
Yes.
And I think it all starts with awareness and being able to identify it and then knowing practical steps that, I guess, make sure that you're safe and the other person is safe as well.
Yeah, I like that you added that point that, it's like we're trying to safeguard ourselves, but then we want to extend our helping hand.
Exactly.
So that we're all as a society looking out for each other. So let's introduce our guest for today. Okay, so let's introduce our guest speaker for this week. We are so excited to have Balbir Gurm here at the studio. And Sanjana, tell the viewers a little bit about our guest speaker.
Yeah, of course. So she is a professor at KPU, a nurse, also an award-winning educator, and we are so lucky to have her here today.
She is quite the resource. So all these things that she's a part of, we will definitely give this information to the viewers at the end of the show. But yeah, let's get this show started with our guest speaker.
Hi everyone, welcome back to The Reality Is. We have our guest speaker over here and we still have Alicia.
I'm still here.
She's still here, guys. Said quite a few nice things about you, but please do elaborate.
Okay, well thank you. I'm a nursing faculty by background. I teach at KPU. I've been doing a lot of research concentrated since about 2011 on relationship violence. Before that, a lot of my work is with the South Asian community, equity issues most of my life. So just a mishmash of health things over the years, and like I said, more concentrated in the recent past. And then another passionate project I have, which we can talk about another day, is the South Asian history in BC. Because there's no documentation, so that's a project we've been working on for the last few years, but we'll be continuing as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, so much to touch up on. But yeah, again, thank you so much for being here. And today's topic is about relationship violence. So could you give us a bit of a rundown on what exactly is relationship violence, especially because it's such an important topic to discuss because of youth, as mentioned, navigating into new relationships and experiences.
Right. So when we say relationship violence, it's really all encompassing. What it is violence between two people that know each other, and it can occur anywhere. So it doesn't have to be, like a boyfriend, girlfriend, or partners. It can be your family, it can be a boss, so it can be in the workplace, it can be at school, it could be your prof, right?
Yeah.
Like it could be a colleague of mine, for all I know. It can be really anywhere where there's a power imbalance between two people that know each other.
So for today's game, we will have our wonderful guest speaker, Balbir, ask Alicia and I both some questions. And we might get some questions wrong, and that's completely fine. And then we'll also discuss the answers and get a better picture on the topic today. And with that being said, could you
Let's
ask
get started.
Yes,
All
let's
right.
get started.
Okay, here's our exciting game. So if your partner or boyfriend texts you every 30 minutes, is this relationship violence?
Okay, I'll go.
Okay.
I'm gonna say it is because I feel like it's really obsessive. The amount that boyfriend's texting, it doesn't seem normal.
Yeah, that's right. You're absolutely right.
Yay.
Because what it is a form of stalking. So trying to figure out exactly what the person's doing, where they are, and that definitely is relationship violence.
Yeah.
For all the youth to keep in mind,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
it happens to older adults, but quite often those that are younger than 18, about 60% of the abuse is with them.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's huge. Okay, next question. So if you're in a group and you're called a slut, is that relationship violence?
Is that Sanjana?
Sanjay, yeah, go for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would think so. I think that's a very disrespectful term to use towards someone. It's very degrading. So yeah, is that right?
It is right.
Okay.
Yeah, any kind of degrading, name calling, it comes under bullying, and so that is definitely relationship violence.
What about, okay, my thinking was like, if it happened once, it's not a pattern. Like, I feel like if it happens a lot, then you know that it's like a continuous thing. It's not a one-off thing. Of course, no one should ever say that.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say false to that question.
Even as a one-off thing,
Yeah.
it's
Oh.
not acceptable.
Yes.
Because they're disrespecting you.
Yes.
And also, especially if you're in a group and no one stands up for you, then they're also not respecting you.
Yes.
A couple has been together for a few months, but in the last month you've noticed that, I guess you're one of the couple, that you no longer see your friends and only your partner's friends. And every time you bring up the subject and say, oh, why don't we do something with, my friends over here? There's always an excuse and a reason for why there's no time to do that. Now, is that relationship violence, true or false?
Ooh. Okay.
Okay, Alicia, what do you think?
Okay, so I want to say true, but I also want to say false because maybe that person has a really close bond with their partner, so much so that they are like okay with not seeing their friends and stuff. But it could also be true because you don't know what's preventing them from seeing their friends. It could be that the partner doesn't want it, or the person themselves feels so closed off and so isolated that they can't reach out to other people. So I haven't really given an answer, so I'll say true.
What about you, Sanjana? What do you think?
I was thinking false because what if your partner's uncomfortable with your friends and maybe that's why they're choosing to not spend that time with your friends. Yeah, I'm like, which partner am I talking about? Yeah. But then on the other hand, if your partner's consistently not allowing you to spend time with your friends, I feel that's neglecting other aspects of your life as well. So I don't know. So
What it is it's still relationship violence. It's a tactic that is used by the abuser to isolate you from your friends so you have no social circle and no one you can go to.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so it's one of the tactics you need to look out for.
I think the
Yeah.
other thing is, it's really easy for them, for the partner to be really, like, not be so aggressive in what they're saying. They can really sound sad and sound, use more, I guess, how should I say it? More manipulative tactics.
Yes.
Like, oh, why don't you want to hang out with me? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why do you want to go see your friends every time? And then it makes you feel sorry for them rather than feel upset.
Exactly.
And you're more likely to, be with that person, with their partner.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. Usually, the abuser is quite manipulative.
Very skillful,
and it happens over time that the partner doesn't necessarily notice
They're
it.
so sad and
I
dark
know.
but then,
But they're clarifying so many of my
they
own
are clarifying
doubts
so
too.
much. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we could take them in a lot of directions, but I think just for the audience, just to understand a little bit, we can move on to the next one.
Yeah.
That was a good transition there.
Okay, when you were in elementary school, your parents would hit you and yell at you. Now, when you hear a loud noise or you think you did something that they may not approve of, you just freeze up. And do you think this is a sign of post-traumatic syndrome or abuse that you may have suffered as a young child?
Oh, I need my buzzer.
Why is
Let's see who wants to answer that one.
I'm going to let Sandra answer.
Yeah, I think that it could be true because obviously you've been through a very traumatic phase or you've been through something very difficult and I guess it's easy to confuse it with, oh, well, it's just my parents' morals or the values that I've been brought up. That's why I freeze up, or that's why I decide not to do a certain thing, or that's why I freeze up at a scenario. But I also feel like maybe you've been abused physically or emotionally, and that's why you're so reluctant to do something.
It's a trigger. That's been going on possibly for years since you were a child. And even though you're an adult now, you still get that same reaction from your body.
Yeah.
It gets built in. Like
Yes.
we say a lot of times, even if you can't put it into words, you can get other reactions. And the stress response, so you either get freezing up or you get flight and you take off.
Yeah. Your heart.
Yeah.
Is this the last question?
Yeah, one more.
Oh.
One more. This is the
Awesome.
last one. So your friend has developed asthma, has headaches, and gastrointestinal problems. Now, is this also a sign of relationship violence? Who wants to tackle that one?
Okay, I'll do it.
Okay. Okay, Alicia,
Okay,
go for it.
I think that I can't say definitively that this person is in an abusive relationship or that whole definition you gave that encompasses a lot of different relationships, but I know for gastrointestinal stuff, because I have some issues, it comes out of stress and like things like that. So it could be they could be in a relationship that's stressful and it's having physical manifestations such as asthma and stuff. Am I right?
You are right, absolutely. In fact, I almost gave it away when I answered the last question. I stopped myself because all of our abuses that we may have suffered at some point, and it's usually prolonged, right? It's not like, a one time I got hit in the face or whatever it was, but over a prolonged time where we haven't verbalized it or talked about it or journaled or whatever we needed to do, and we are not able to describe it. We may not even remember it because it was in our younger years. So it shows up as physical conditions, and these are a few of them. It can also be related to diabetes. You can get heart disease. Some people have even associated it with cancer. So a lot of our chronic illnesses seem to be related to some kind of relationship violence over a prolonged period of time in our own histories.
It's also really important for you to know, because a lot of times they might get used to being mistreated and they think that this is normal, and then they don't feel a need to resolve it because they don't think it'll affect them or it hasn't affected them yet. And it affects you when you're an adult later through mental health issues and physical health issues because they're so connected with each other.
The other thing I thought was so interesting is, like, we were just talking about how, like, you know, our demographic here is like primarily South Asian, right? And it's always like, you know,
we're getting to about 40%.
That's a big number, eh? But it's just so interesting because, like, people are kind of quick to say it's a South Asian issue, like, it's widespread in our community. You know, the husbands abuse the wives. You know, they're financially dependent on them. They have children. But, you know, we talked about this. It's universal. It's in any culture, any society.
Anywhere, any age.
Yeah.
And so it impacts everyone, not just the South Asian community. And I remember in my early days, that's what I used to hear from police. They'd say it was a South Asian issue.
Right? Wow.
And I said, okay, if it's a South Asian issue and we're mainly concentrated around the Toronto area and the Vancouver area, then why does Halifax have the same rates? And then they said, oh, okay. You know,
I didn't think of that.
And so we started working with that and then looking at statistics around the world. Yes, it is higher in some countries, but on the average, it is about 1 in 3 around the world.
Wow. And I'm really curious, what are some symptoms or signs that people, especially youth, should be aware of? Does it manifest differently for youth and young adults?
Well, generally, you know, the big thing about Pink Shirt Day, right, and bullying, that's huge within schools, whether you're talking university or elementary school. So bullying, and then kids wanting to belong, so putting up with bullying.
Yes, exactly.
Having a leader of the gang, and I don't mean like, you know, an organized gang.
Yeah,
I'm just talking about a group of people, right?
Exactly.
You know, just a group of people, right, who hang out together. There tends to be a leader, and people just follow, and so that's a power and privilege situation right there.
Exactly.
So you get peer pressure, right? You know, you have to do this, or you have to dress like this, or all of that is actually abuse.
Wow.
I'd never thought of it. Like,
I didn't think of that idea.
It makes sense, like, when you just talk about it, but it's like, it really starts at an early age, and that's why, like, it's important to also know how to deal with it or how not to be a bystander.
That is so important, how not to be a bystander, because even if we're not the ones that are being picked on, I'm going to say, at the time in school, then we should be the ones speaking up. But when I say that, I always put a caveat on to say, make sure that you are safe when you do that.
I know.
You know, like if the bully is 10 times your size, you don't necessarily want to be the one interfering. If it's a matter of life and death, you want to be calling 911. If it's less so and it's elementary or high school, you've got the principal.
Exactly.
You've got the vice principal or your teacher or someone that you can talk with. So when you talk about what do we do, the first thing is we believe the person telling us. Okay, because it takes a lot for people to report. In fact, a lot of times it will go on for years before somebody will actually report it.
Wow.
And even when they report it to police, a lot of times they'll recant and say, oh no, it was okay, I just misunderstood, or it was an accident. They'll change the story. And police get frustrated, but I can understand why, because this is someone you trust and love, right? Somebody you know, who's a friend that's doing this to you. And so the first thing always, if your friend tells you, and usually you report to friends before anybody else knows, or a relative. So believe the person, and then make sure that it's not a life and death situation. If it is, you've got to report it by law. Okay, if not, you want to make sure that they have a safety plan. Okay, so you can go to our resources on how do you create a safety plan, basically making sure you've got a bag packed with things that you might need, and you might leave it with a friend. Like
Okay.
it could be, your social's insurance card, your passport. If you have credit cards that aren't also on your partner's name or whatever. But with youth, I don't think they'd necessarily be living with that person, but that's more for women who are in abusive situations.
Exactly. Or
Yeah,
they have
but
children, then you
yeah,
have to have
exactly.
their documents and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but children will need to do the same if they're in an
Yeah.
abusive home. If it's a partner outside, that's a little bit different. But if it's an abusive home, same thing. You want to keep all your identity type items.
Exactly.
And you want to make sure that your phone is not going to be tracked as well. Like sometimes
wow.
people don't
That's
think
a
about
good
the
one.
phone, right? And if you have credit cards which your parents have given you, well, wherever you use it, they're going to know where you are.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
you got to be careful of those types of things and make sure you've got enough cash. Or if you have to go to the ministry, there's all kinds of resources that are available.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
But first thing is always believe them. And then if you want to know where the resources are, actually on our website, we have apps that you can download.
Oh, wow.
Which will, I haven't tried them. Okay. I've taken them from other youth who have given them to me and we've
okay.
put them on our website. So you might want to try them and see if they actually work. But if not, we have a resource under toolkits when you get to our website
Okay.
that's called the Pink Book.
Pink book.
Because a lot of our early work was violence against women, but we also know that some theorists say that it's equal amongst men, but most of the reporting that we see is evidence for violence against women.
I see.
But then there's a whole series of things we could talk about another day on why
On men.
men
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
masculinity
Oh
and
my
why they don't
goodness.
report and so forth.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we ever know what the true statistics
It's
are
so
because
true.
most people don't report.
And if people wanted to get support, what kind of steps do they need to take for themselves? Because I know for youth especially, if they wanted to report something, they might also fear what their parents might think or
Yeah.
their family might think. Or say if they went out to a party and they were abused over there. Now obviously they might not want to report that to their parents because they don't want their
Yeah.
parents to even find out they were at a party. And
That's
Exactly.
a good point. That's so realistic.
It is very realistic
That
because
is
I
so
know a lot of
realistic.
parents would want their kids at a party.
Exactly.
The first
Yeah.
thing would be like,
Why were you there?
yeah, why were you
Yeah.
there?
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
I thought you were at this person's house.
Yeah.
Like, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And then it kind of
Exactly.
goes, it
Yeah.
veers off of
It
just
does.
believing them.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
if it's sexual abuse or physical abuse, we do have like forensic nurses that collect evidence for you so that
Okay.
if you did want to file charges at a later date, at least the evidence would be there. And you may not be sure at that time, you may not know, but they'll go through and assess the injuries and document everything and make sure that you've got it all.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's one thing. But you can just call BC 211. So you can
Okay.
dial 211 and they'll direct you to the right person on who you can talk to. So you don't have to report to police. You can get help.
Okay.
But you can also report to police. It just depends on the severity and how you feel about it.
Exactly.
And
Okay.
it is confidential, so
Perfect.
yeah.
And will they also be able to help you identify whether this was an abuse? Because a lot of times in a stressful scenario, you might think, oh, well, maybe this was an abuse. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Are you able to reach out to them and see if it follows under relationship abuse?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
They will ask you a series of questions and, like basically what happened, what's the story, and they will definitely help you figure out if it's abuse. But I think you would know. You'll have a gut reaction.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You may not be able to say, "Oh, this is relationship violence," or or numerous other terms like bullying or intimate partner violence, or oh, you could even get cyberbullying. We didn't even talk about that, or cyber texting, right? People get called names through text, Facebook, all
Yeah.
kinds of social media, or you might have had an intimate relationship with someone, and next thing you know, it's all over media.
But I think, is there anything else that you wanted to say, or something that else we wanted to ask? Because
I did want to know more about the different types of relationship violence. I
Sure.
know that besides sexual, there's also emotional, there might be physical,
Yep.
and financial,
That's right.
etc. So I feel like a lot of people, when they associate violence, they think of more like maybe like sexual abuse or physical abuse, and they're not able to, I guess, get concerned with the different aspects and the different elements of a person, and yeah.
That's right. So there's all those, plus there's spiritual abuse. So
Okay.
Your beliefs about, whether you're going to a mandir, a mosque, a gurdwara, a church, right? You may not necessarily want to go to that place, or you may want to, and somebody's preventing you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's spiritual abuse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, there's so many different aspects to consider, but there's also so many resources out there as well, as you've mentioned.
There are a lot of resources. A lot of places also do have waiting lists, but for youth, it's a little bit easier.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
and
great.
especially now during COVID, because they've made mental health services free for now.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
if it's a time that you need help, this is probably the best time.
Yeah, I
'cause
think before we go, I would love, or we would love, to hear about, your ventures, what you're up to, as well as your book.
Okay.
Your book.
My book. Well, it's not just my book. There are 4 of us who are the authors. I did write a lot of it, but there are other people who wrote chapters or, co-wrote chapters. So there's a total of 13 of us that were involved in that project.
Yeah.
I happen to be the lead, but to me it was a effort on everyone's part, because
Yeah.
even if I wrote it, they had to read it and make sure that from their own perspective, because they're different professionals and different academics, so that
Yeah.
it covered everything they would from their perspective as well. So not just those who work with children or those who work with adults or seniors, or because I find there's so much overlap. There's a lot of commonalities on abuse. There's also very distinct differences.
Yeah.
But I think if we all work together on prevention, on the commonalities, we could have such a fantastic campaign across Canada. Toolkits. And one I specifically want to mention is a peer manual.
Right.
So if there's any youth listening who want to be involved in their schools, on teaching other youth, not just about relationship violence or physical or sexual violence, but also about assertiveness skills, cyberbullying, what is consent.
Yeah.
That's another huge issue, right? So there's a variety of topics, but we have a manual that teaches you how to teach your peers.
Wow.
And if you find you want to do it and you can find a sponsor, counselor, or teacher, just tell them to get in contact with me and I can train you, and then you can train your peers too, right? And if you feel like anything's missing from resources that we have from your experience, we run everything, we value you equally. So we try not to do power over anyone. And so we would be happy to incorporate it, even in the book that we talked about, which already has a lot of people involved. But if you want to write something in it, we would be happy to add it, because
so
it's a virtual book, which
Yeah.
means it's a living virtual book. So we will update it at least once a year, and maybe even more often.
Yeah.
Shall we give everybody just one website, because they can link to everything
Everything,
from
yes,
it?
yes.
Yes,
That would
that
be
would-
That
would be
just
great.
a piece of cake
yeah,
for everyone.
yeah. So just go to well, everybody knows www. So kpu.ca / and then never NEVR.
NEVR.
Yes, and so you'll see resources, you'll see events, you'll see toolkits. So the peer mentor manual is under toolkits.
Right.
And not under other resources. I know that sometimes is a bit confusing. and then our book, just because we launched it, you'll find it on the first page as
Yeah.
you click.
Yeah.
And on it is the website for the book, so that you can click onto that as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate all the information you provided, the resources, how to be aware of about the situation, and how to support people who are going through something like this, and even giving youth leadership opportunities to help inspire more people. It's really nice when you're able to pass it down to more people, and I think you've really done a phenomenal job about that. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you to both of you for having me. I mean, I find it really, I don't know what the word is, but I was going to say fun, but it's such a sad topic. But just to be able to talk to the younger generation, just like you said, I mean, our generation didn't really recognize abuse. We accept it as normal parenting, and some of us have passed it on to our kids because, you know, there's no manual that shows you how to parent, so you kind of pass it on from generation to generation. So I think it's up to us to break the cycle. And so if we can get you thinking about it now, that when you get to be parents, that you will start from day one and make sure that you don't abuse your kids, right? And that if your friends are in situations, you'll recognize it and you'll be able to help them. So, so thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to just share with your audience.
Really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the opportunity. Okay, we're so glad to have our guest speaker, Balbir, here today. We discussed relationship abuse, and although, it's a difficult topic to approach, it's good that we were able to spread awareness about it and hopefully give more people an idea about how it presents itself in different relationships and I guess in different environments as well, because there were so many things I wasn't aware of that constituted as relationship violence and abuse, and I think she really shed some light on that.
Yeah, it was really good to talk about it because we obviously hold a lot of misconceptions still. It's prevalent in societies, so that means it's a universal thing, unfortunately, that happens to a lot of people. But again, it's good to talk about, and Balbir is such a good resource when it comes to this topic. So we will put the resource down for viewers to look at. So many ways you guys can get involved. You know, you can just be educated about the topic. You can actually, you know, be someone who is educating fellow youth so that, you know, the right kind of information is discussed and, you know, there's a lack of bystander effect, you know what I mean? And so all of that is important so that one day we will eradicate this issue in our society. So, thank you again, Balbir. Thank you, Dan, video and camera operator. Thank you to us for such a bomb-ass show. And we will see you next Thursday at 6 p.m. Yay!
Yay!